The judge looked weary, clearly wanting to wrap things up quickly. She hurriedly moved around the house, her eyes scanning every corner. She picked up a vase and gave it a scrutinizing look. Approaching the TV, she remarked, "A 50-inch screen for the kids, huh?" Meanwhile, the mother scrambled to conceal the children's toys and gadgets from the judge's sharp gaze. Michelle Howard, a hard-working woman from Wigan, Lancashire in the UK, led a life that intrigued her neighbors. Despite working as a cleaner, she seemed to have an impressive amount of money at her disposal. She resided in an average 3-bedroom rental home where her 12 children shared bunk beds in their room. Curiosity grew among the neighbors, prompting them to wonder about the secret behind Michelle's wealth. Michelle, a 45-year-old, twice-divorced woman, had successfully collected child support from each of her ex-husbands for the past 5 years. However, her fortune would soon face scrutiny. The judge who had been overseeing her family case was unexpectedly transferred, leaving the proceedings in the hands of a new judge, a female with a sharp eye for detail. As the new judge delved into Michelle's paperwork, she couldn't help but notice some irregularities. Although she was a feminist, she didn't take lightly to anybody being swindled. Certain figures didn't add up, raising suspicion within her. Determined to uncover the truth, she embarked on a mission to gather more information about Michelle and her finances. Meanwhile, Michelle's routine remained unchanged. She diligently carried out her cleaning duties during the day and took care of her children in the evenings. The rumors swirling among the neighbors didn't bother her much. She was confident that her secrets were well hidden, but she left a few details unguarded which would cause all eyes to turn on her. Weeks turned into months as the inquisitive judge continued her investigation. She meticulously examined bank statements, tax records, and any available evidence that could shed light on the mystery. Her pursuit of the truth became a personal quest fueled by her intuition and a sense of justice. Would she be able to find the evidence she was looking for? One evening, while Michelle was preparing dinner for her children, there was an unexpected knock at the door. Who could it be now? She wasn't expecting anyone. Opening it cautiously, she found herself face to face with a determined judge who had come to question her about the discrepancies in her financial records. He was standing on her doorstep and Michelle couldn't turn him away. Caught off guard, Michelle struggled to maintain her composure. She invited the judge inside, hoping to downplay any suspicions. She needed to impress the new judge on her case. The judge, however, was relentless. She began asking pointed questions, forcing Michelle to confront the truth she had worked so hard to conceal. Michelle felt that something was fishy. What was he looking for? Under the intense scrutiny, Michelle was afraid that her facade would crumble. She started crying in an attempt to confuse the judge. "It's just so hard on my own. Their fathers don't care about them." The judge tried to calm down the hysterical woman. He wasn't prepared for her emotional outburst. "Well, I'm sure we can find some solution in court. There, Michelle. I'll see you at the hearing, okay?" He left the sobbing Michelle, who was secretly victorious that she had won another day. As Michelle watched the judge walk away, she knew that she had a close call. The home case counselor was supposed to do the routine visits. Why did the judge herself come personally? She rushed inside and tried to clear up any expensive items she had lying about. She picked up her iPad and laptop and put them away. She needed to lay low just in case, just until the hearing. The next week, Michelle Howard sat nervously in the courtroom, her hands tightly clutching onto her handbag. She had been through many court hearings before, but today felt different. Judge Bennett, a stern and no-nonsense woman, had been transferred to this case, and Michelle had a sinking feeling that her secret was about to be exposed. Michelle nervously drank her glass of water as she watched the courtroom fill up. Her ex-husband walked in looking smug and proud. "Mrs. Howard," Judge Bennett began, peering at Michelle over her glasses, "I have been looking over your financial records, and I must say, I am quite intrigued." Michelle's heart raced. She had always prided herself on being able to live a comfortable life as a cleaner, but now it seemed like her facade was crumbling before her eyes. She would need to have valid proof about her purchases. She had collected some receipts which matched the corresponding dates and times, but there was a lot unaccounted for. Judge Bennett simply stated the facts for the room to hear. She didn't want excuses in her courtroom, she wanted the truth. "You live in an average 3-bedroom home, yet your bank statements show a substantial amount of money." Judge Bennett continued, her voice laced with suspicion. "Could you please explain how a cleaner manages to amass such wealth?" Michelle shifted uncomfortably in her seat, desperately trying to come up with a plausible explanation. She knew she couldn't reveal the truth, not now. Although her lifestyle was under question, deep down inside, she felt that it was her right to the money. She had raised the children on her own while their promiscuous fathers lived their lives. The mother of 12 tried to gather her thoughts. She knew that this day would come. Her ex-husband Donald was staring at her angrily. "Well, Your Honor," she stammered, I have some investments, and I'm quite frugal with my spending." Would the judge believe her? Judge Bennett raised an eyebrow, clearly unconvinced. Investments? Could you provide any proof of these alleged investments? The judge listened attentively, gathering evidence and building a case against Michelle. The weight of her actions became apparent as the consequences of her deceit loomed over her. Michelle's comfortable life was about to crumble, and the well-being of her children hung in the balance. Michelle's mind raced as she tried to think of a way to evade the judge's questions. She knew she couldn't produce any evidence of these investments because they simply didn't exist. "Your Honor," she said, her voice quivering, "I don't have the documents with me today. But I assure you they are legitimate," she said softly. Would the judge give her more time? Judge Bennett leaned forward, her gaze piercing through Michelle. "Mrs. Howard, I find it hard to believe that a cleaner would have such substantial investments without any proof. I think it's time we uncover the truth." Michelle felt her heart sink as the judge's words hung in the air. She knew her web of lies was quickly unraveling, and there was no escaping the truth any longer. "Mr. John," Judge Bennett called out to Michelle's last husband, who sat anxiously in the gallery, "I have ordered a DNA test for the youngest child. We need to clarify paternity." As the court adjourned for the day, Michelle sat in silence, her mind consumed by a mix of fear and guilt. She knew deep down that Judge Bennett was right, and the DNA test would expose her deceit. Days turned into weeks as Michelle anxiously awaited the results. The weight of her actions began to take a toll on her, and she realized the extent of her addiction to having children. Her last child was conceived by IVF. Mr. John, her ex-husband, was unaware of this. It wasn't just a desire, it was a compulsion and mental problem she had been battling for years. Mr. John had dutifully been paying child support for 3 children over the past year, but something made him suspicious as he watched his last son grow. The boy didn't resemble him at all. This prompted him to take legal advice. Finally, the day arrived when the results were revealed. The courtroom was filled with an eerie silence as the judge read out the findings. Whose child was the last-born son? Judge Bennett read the document carefully. She brought it up to her nose as though she was unsure of what she saw. She frowned. The DNA test confirms that Mr. John is not the biological father of the youngest child, Judge Bennett announced, her voice resolute. "Mrs. Howard, it is clear that you have been exploiting Mr. John, faking your child's paternity for more child support." Tears streamed down Michelle's face as she listened to the judge's words. The truth was finally out, and there was no denying her actions any longer. I'm sorry," she sobbed, her voice choked with remorse. "I never meant to hurt anyone. I just couldn't control my need for more children. Would the jury have mercy on her?" The room was abuzz with chatter. Mr. Johns was triumphantly fist-pumping. "I knew it," he said with glee. "She's crazy, I told you," he said, pointing at Michelle, sobbing. Judge Bennett softened her gaze, her stern exterior revealing a glimmer of compassion. "Mrs. Howard, it is clear that you have a mental problem, an addiction that needs addressing. I will be ordering a psychiatric evaluation to determine the best course of action moving forward." Poor Michelle couldn't say anything to defend herself any longer. She was caught out. The trial that followed captured the attention of the entire town. Michelle, once admired by her neighbors for her apparent success, was now seen as a fraudster, betraying the trust of the community. The evidence against her was overwhelming, leaving little room for doubt. As the judge delivered her verdict, Michelle's heart sank. She was found guilty of multiple counts of fraud and faced a severe penalty. She had never been convicted before. The courtroom buzzed with mixed emotions from disbelief to anger, as the consequences of her actions became clear. What was going to happen to her now? As Michelle left the courtroom that day, she felt a mixture of relief and shame. The truth had been exposed, and now it was time for her to confront her addiction and seek the help she so desperately needed. She was going to be admitted into a mental asylum and had to do community service for 3 years to prove her good character. Would she live on the straight and narrow? With time, therapy, and support, Michelle began to rebuild her life. She left Wigan, Lancashire, hoping for a fresh start where no one knew her past. She found comfort in helping others by volunteering in a local support group for people with addiction. Although the shame of her past lingered, her children helped her keep going. As the years went by, her children came to understand what their mother had been through, which brought them closer together. Michelle worked hard to repair her relationship with them, asking for forgiveness and putting their needs before her own desires.